My son George is here to help as needed. So here we go. Hit me.
George, go up and hit you down.
No, hit me as a metaphor. I don't really need him to hit me. I think, Krista, you probably need to turn the volume down on your laptop.
Okay. All right. So our first question comes from John. He would like to know a source to buy a power vented hood that you use while working on your lathe.
George? Oh, you know what? It's not here. It's in my truck. It's in my truck because I just used it for a class I taught. So the product is a Trend Air Shield. And George, just grab one of the other face shields and we'll talk them through what happens here. If you haven't seen this thing, it's a great way to protect yourself when you're woodworking in general and specifically when you're turning. So here's the deal. Anytime that you're working on the lathe, lots of junk comes flying off. There's George, or George's arm. So you want to wear a face shield with a respirator face shield. Up here, there's an attachment that has a blower and a set of filters. And when you have this on, it's constantly blowing fresh air down over your face. So it's going to help you, it's going to prevent you from inhaling a bunch of junk. So the product I've worn on a bunch of turning videos is Trend, is the manufacturer. Air Shield Pro is the particular product. If you look it up on a search engine on the worldwide interweb, you're going to find it no problem. All right, ma'am.
Okay. Tom wants to know, why is it that when he rips a board that a piece against the fence moves away from and does not stay tight against the fence after the board has traveled past the blade?
All right, let's head for the table saw, Krista. You were already moving. You knew what I was going to do.
Because I'm awesome.
You are awesome. You're very good at this. All right, so what I think, Krista, if you get right in line, like on kind of the outfeed side here, George might have to gap your cord a little bit there for you so you don't get hung up. This was Tom, right? Was my asker?
Yep, Tom.
All right, Tom. Here's what I think, because I've seen this happen in a lot of my classes. And what happens when people rip on the table saw is there's a tendency to, you of course want to keep yourself as far from the blade as possible. So what happens is that people are holding their push stick or on a wider board, their hand real close to the fence because they want to be far from the blade. So what happens sometimes is that with your pressure here close to the fence, this has a tendency to lever the piece off the fence and start creating those gaps. So in my classes, when I'm teaching woodworking, what I recommend is keep your push stick as close as possible to the guard without hitting the guard. So yeah, I think maybe if you tilt down, there we go, perfect. So come in as close as you can to the guard without hitting the guard. And what that's going to do is it's going to have pressure toward the left side here, and then that's going to help keep it against the fence. What's the problem? Going okay? There. What?
Looks a little fuzzy, but maybe it's just me.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm fuzzy today.
All right. And we have a question from one of our viewers. They're getting ready to move to Alaska from Oklahoma in a few weeks, and they're wondering if you have any suggestions on how best to protect the table saw, bandsaw, jointer, etc. during the move. He's concerned about rust since all of the household goods will be going to Alaska by truck and by ship.
Okay, really? That's kind of cool. We can stay here. So George, out of that finishing cabinet, Bostic Glide Coat is kind of a blue aerosol can. I think you're down too low. Go up one more shelf. And I think it's right in front of you right now. Yep. And then I'll take that, and then I'm going to send you back for a can. See, I think there's a can of Johnson wax, and there would be about that high. So this product and products like it are in the marketplace. This particular one is Bostic Glide Coat. I know you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at woodworking retailers. Probably not find it in a home center. And the deal with this is a woodworking specific aerosol protectant. And we spray this on. One of the things it does is it lubricates the surface so that your wood is going to slide more readily. And the other thing it's going to do is seal the surface. So for your trip, It sounds like this is going to be very important. Normally what I do is I spray this on, and then after it dries, I buff it out. And in your case, I would just spray it on, and I wouldn't do the rubbing it out step. What I sent George for, and it might be a red herring, I'm not sure I have the product. Johnson Paste Wax is another, it's just what people used to put on wooden floors. And Carnauba Based, C-A-R-N-A-U-B, Carnauba Based Paste Wax. Same thing, you would rub that on like you're waxing a car, and then I wouldn't buff it out. I would just leave a good heavy coat on there. The reason that we're sticking with these woodworking specific products like Carnauba Wax and, that's a can of something, but that's not it. Carnauba Wax and Bostik is because they don't have silicone in them. You never want anything with silicone in it on your table saw, any of your tool surfaces, because the silicone will migrate into your wood, seal it, and when you go to stain it, you'll have a problem. All right.
Great.
Hit me.
All right. Let's see. Potty, maybe, I hope I'm saying that right, wants to know what glue would you use on outside doors?
What glue on outside doors? Should we walk this way? Hey, George, could you get me a Type Bond 2 and a Type Bond 3 off the top of the glue cabinet? So what I would probably look for on a door is something that's more waterproof rather than water resistant. So I've got George over there grabbing a couple of products. I would reach for, on a door, Type Bond 3, and the reason being, thank you, sir, that Type Bond 3 is the one that is waterproof. Type Bond 2 is water resistant. So thinking about with an outside door, the exposure it's going to get to the elements, I want to make sure that we've got that integrity that's going to come from the 3, and that'll work really well. Its use or application is just like any other wood glue, very user-friendly, very easy to use.
Great, thank you. And I just want to remind everybody out there, we got started a little late with some technical difficulties, but we are here with George Von Driska, the managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. Go out to our Facebook page, like us on Twitter, and visit us at wwgoa.com. And I think we're still working on getting Kayleen McCabe on with us. All right, sorry, I'll go on to the next question. What are the best tools to get to start a wood shop with on a budget, but wanting to be able to do some work?
Okay. The first thing you need is a credit card with a really high limit, and then you can buy whatever you want. Woodworkers have all sorts of different answers to this. Very few woodworkers will argue with starting with the table saw, because really that's so integral to what we do in a woodworking shop. Now, caveat to that today could be track saws. A lot of companies make really good quality track saws. Have come a long way and can do a lot of the work in a small space that a table saw does. So table saw or track saw is a great start. Then I would recommend a router, a handheld router, and a router table. And again, we've got a versatility thing going here. There are a lot of things you can do with a handheld router, a lot of things you can do on a router table. You can even use a router table like a jointer if you set it up correctly. So that's one of the things I like about the router table, is it can, at least for a while, displace the need for a jointer. So table saw, router and router table, and then as we keep going down order of priority here, a random orbit sander would be a great choice. And then a really good vacuum system of some kind. You want to have something to connect to your tools so that they're grabbing the dust for you. It's okay to start with a shop vacuum, but eventually you're going to want to upgrade to a dust collector. That probably blows a lot of budgets right there. That's 5 items. Do you want me to keep going, Krista, or you got more?
No, because I actually have a question from DB that kind of feeds right into this. DB would like to know, which of the following tools would you buy first when you're setting up your shop? Would you buy a circular saw, a drill press, a bandsaw, a chop saw, or a lathe?
Well, I love turning, so I would probably buy a lathe, but that doesn't mean I would necessarily recommend a lathe for everybody. So circ saw, chop saw, drill press, lathe, bandsaw, What did I miss? What else did he ask?
Drill press.
Drill press. Drill presses are boring. Get it? It's a little boring. Chris is giving me the stink eye. George is giving me the stink eye. So of those, I would probably go with bandsaw, miter saw, maybe. I'd have a hard time picking between the two. Again, in the world of versatility, I love my bandsaw. Small blade in there, and you can cut incredibly tight curves. Large blade, and you can cut logs up on a bandsaw. So very versatile tool. Miter saw, when I first had my shop and was teaching classes, I actually didn't have a miter saw. We did all our cross cutting on a table saw. So if you've got a table saw in the shop, that can take care of that. So I'm going to pick a bandsaw. That's my final answer.
Great.
Did I win?
Sure.
Okay.
I have a question about a table saw now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Should I start walking that way, or?
No, I don't think so. Wilbert would like to know, how does he know how to choose the right table saw?
Ooh. Well, so first thing is save your pennies. And there's an adage that's something like, buy the best thing you can possibly buy and you'll only cry once. So the crying at that point is, boy, did I deplete my checking account. But you're going to have a high quality tool that you can use for the rest of your life. So part of what we need to do is say, pick a budget, pick a price point. Then within that price point, broad strokes, there are 3 kinds of table saws, what are called job site saws, contractor saws, cabinet saws. Job site saws, I wouldn't discount them. They've really come a long way. Back in the day, job site saws, benchtop saws, wouldn't take a dado head. A number of those saws today will. Dado head is a big consideration because we use dado heads a lot in woodworking. So I would definitely want a saw that would accept a dado head. Contractor saw is a step up. It's going to go up in price, but it's also going to give you more horsepower. So if you're a real ardent woodworker, I'd say you want to favor toward contractor or cabinet saws, and in between those two, there's what's called a hybrid saw, where they've taken the guts of a contractor saw and put them in a cabinet. Those are also a really good choice. Most of them are 110 volts, so you don't need a 220 drop in your shop. So we need to know a little bit more about your woodworking to take that answer any further. And I think then I'm ready if you got another one, Krista.
I do. We have a lot of questions rolling in.
Okay.
So, all right. So.
And we'll go long at the end here because we started late.
Yep. Yeah. So I have another one that might be hard to answer because we don't have the dimensions of the shop. But someone wants to know, I believe it's Jim, what's the best size bandsaw for the shop? Again, yeah. Yeah,
so that's not really about the size of a shop, but let's point through the bandsaw. We'll get some movement going here so that we'll liven things up a little. All right, so when we refer to a bandsaw and we talk about what size it is, this is a 14-inch bandsaw. That's the diameter of the wheels, and they're the same top and bottom. And Krista, if you go to your right just a little bit, we'll hit another saw. I think you can stay there, but just point this way. So this is an 18-inch bandsaw. So the wheels, upper and lower, are 18 inches. And then, in addition to that, we've got a couple other things going. We've got motor size. That 14-inch I showed you is a 1 horsepower, 110 volt. This is 220 volt, and I think it's 2 horsepower motor on this one. So part of the question is going to be, what do you want to do with it? 14-inch saws, like the first one I showed you, let's sashay back that, thank you, ma'am. 14-inch saws in this category are very, very capable. This has got a 12-inch capacity on it, and I sawn logs on this saw, no problem. So this is a great versatile size of saw for you to use. If you're going to do a lot of resawing, say you're going to do more 12-inch resawing than 3/4 inch on the flat cutting, then I would probably prevail toward the bigger horsepower like we see in that Bridgewood saw back there. Yes, ma'am?
All right. And
I see you're all enthusiastic. Did somebody say, boy, does Krista do a great job?
Yeah,
yes, you do.
Actually.
Yes.
Okay, anyways. So
Krista's behind the camera. She's got like 18 balls in the air right now because she's reading questions from YouTube and from the Hangout, and she's managing the camera. and she's keeping me from going too long on my answers.
That's
usually.
Correct. Usually. I try. Okay, so stay where you are, because Larry wants to know, when your bandsaw blade breaks, what do you recommend for having them re-welded?
Don't. I don't think I've ever had a woodworking bandsaw blade re-welded. I guess for me, by the time that they break, I've also got such degradation in the teeth. It's not sharp enough to justify re-welding anymore. If you wanted to pursue that, I think what you need to do is find a metalworking shop, and I think that they could probably put that blade back together for you. But for me, really, I treat bandsaw blades like a disposable commodity. I don't sharpen them. I don't weld them back together. And honestly, I kind of can't remember the last time I broke a bandsaw blade. And I think that comes down to just making sure you're properly set up on the bandsaw so that everything is going okay. Let's do a technical test while we can, because we're currently using the microphone on the camera. So here's what I want to ask the viewers. We'll call this audio 1. We're on audio 1 right now, okay? Then I'm going to get really close here and do this. Or audio 1, and then the other thing let's throw out there is, don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. It's really cool to hear. I think this is cool. We've had people from Brazil, British Columbia, Australia, New Zealand, England, as well as all over the United States. So let us know where you're viewing from. Krista, could you give me a question already, please? You don't want to see what just happened on the other side of the camera.
All right, Gary
it's not
says.
For little people.
Gary says, "Hi George, I have macular degeneration, so my depth perception is pretty much non-existent. He saw a YouTube video from 2012 where you recommended a laser cross alignment for drill presses. As far as he can tell, the one you liked is no longer being made.
Oh.
The one of Peachtree that is available has a lot of bad reviews. Do you know of a current one that might work out?"
Let's, hey George, can you give Krista a hand, and we're going to roll toward the drill press. So we may have to pull a little more cord out for her. So let's clear that.
You see, this is why I do this over here.
I didn't clean the side of the shop, Gary, so you're getting me in a spot over here. So what Gary's talking about is laser indicators. So let's, Krista, go, there you go. Do that first, and can you see that, the laser lines on the table if I get the junk out of the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a crosshair. You go through an alignment procedure, and it throws this laser onto your work, and it shows you where the center of your hole is going to be.
Does this look fuzzy to you?
It does look a little out of focus.
Yeah, it looks fuzzy whenever I zoom in.
So let's do just a little work here.
More technical difficulties today. If I zoom out, it's not fuzzy though, so I want to get that clear picture, if we can.
I think somehow, give me a sec. We got onto a manual focus mode here, which we don't want.
Oh, there, it's better. It's much clearer.
But I'm afraid when you zoom out, that might lose it, but we'll see what happens here. So the laser is showing us where the center of the hole is going to get drilled. So now, Krista, if you can come up to the product here, it's this yellow thing kind of behind the quill levers. This one was purchased from Woodcraft Supply a number of years ago. It sounds like from what Gary is saying, Woodcraft Supply doesn't sell it anymore. I haven't seen the one from Peachtree, so let's do this. We've got a big audience of people who are watching the video live now, and somewhere upwards of 5,000, 7,000, 9,000 people will watch this video over the next week or so once we archive it on YouTube. So if we could get everybody to kind of give us and give Gary a hand with the sourcing, any place else that somebody can find these aftermarket laser pointers for their drill press. It's a great product. I love having it on here. It's too bad, like I said, it sounds like Woodcraft doesn't have it anymore. So I don't have a source, but maybe somebody else, Gary, can help us out there.
Okay, great. And just a reminder, we're here with George Von Driska, Managing Editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. Please visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and wwgoa.com. Go out and sign up for the newsletter if you don't already receive it.
Where do you want me to walk while you're
going to go that way.
And then, as we're going through tonight, remember that if I talk too fast, this all gets archived on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch it again and pause it and pick up whatever references we're making.
Great. So Shane would like to know, where is the best place to buy hardwood and softwood online?
I don't know.
All right.
It's an interesting question because it seems to me shipping would be a horrible issue. But I haven't done any online wood purchasing, so I'm sorry, I can't help you. But here's another good spot for the readers to weigh in. If you've got information on online wood shopping, throw it in the comments and Shane will pick it up later.
Perfect. All right. So Wade says, thank you for having this session. I look forward to the questions users have. I would like to ask about table saw dust collection. I have a really small shop. It's 8 by 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Feet?
Yeah, 8 by 6 feet. Not inches.
How do you fit a table saw?
How do you deal with dust from the table saw? In my shop, a cloud develops quickly.
All right, wait. If you can throw in the comments what kind of saw you have. So benchtop, contractor, or cabinet saw. And I'm going to guess a contractor saw because they are notoriously difficult to do dust collection on. So let's, Krista, if you point this way, toward the back of the saw. So with a cabinet saw, the deal with that as a name is not that we use them in cabinet shops, although coincidentally we do. But I said we have a cabinet down here, so that does a great job of confining the mechanism. And when I hook dust collection, can you see the elbow down at the bottom? Not mine, but the dust collection elbow?
Yep.
Okay. So when we connect dust collection to this cabinet, we're really getting a whole downdraft system through that cabinet. It's easy to get good dust collection on a cabinet saw. On contractor saws, they're very open. And George, maybe you could wheel, oh no, I'm sorry, never mind, wrong saw. On contractor saws, the base is really wide open, and that's what makes it hard to confine the dust. So I've seen a lot of stuff where cardboard baffles on the back of a contractor saw where the motor comes out can really help. And then a shroud, companies make these commercially, a fabric shroud that will connect to the bottom of the open frame of contractor saw, and then you can hook dust collection up to that. So we'll get a similar downdraft going on that contractor saw. The downside to the cardboard baffles is that when the blade leaves 90 degrees, it's got to be able to move. The motor assembly has to move through that space. So when you angle the blade, you're going to have to take the cardboard out. But typically the blade's at 90 degrees most of the time. So having the cardboard baffles in there could really help get the dust down to the bottom where that other shroud can get it, and you can have some dust collection on the saw.
Great. Thank you very much, George.
And let's say one more thing. I'm sorry. You got to check if you are running dust collection and it seems inadequate. Table saws need about 400 CFM, cubic feet per minute, to have adequate dust collection. So if you're running a shop vacuum and you're getting dust problems, it's because shop vacuums don't pull that kind of air. So then you might want to invest in a dust collector.
Okay. So our next question comes from G. Coney, maybe? I probably didn't say that right. Why are all router bits for any given size smaller than stated? He says he's not talking about plywood bits, but he's talking about your standard 3/4, half-inch, etc. bits. They are all small.
Well, let's do an experiment. So, George, if you open the drawer by the CNC over there, and just, I think there's a 3/8 spiral bit in there. And I don't care too much what bit you grab, but just not one of the ball nose bits. That'd be perfect. All right, so let's see. This is something I actually haven't run into, but I've got a digital caliper, thank you, sir, and we've got a 1/2-inch spiral bit. You stay where you are, Krista, and I'll see if I can.
Nope, comes.
I'm the wrong way. There we go. All right, so if we do this, digital calipers are a wonderful thing to have in the shop. So if I read across from flute to flute, I'm hitting a perfect 1/2-inch. What do you want me to do?
Do you see that better? No. I'll try to just see the
readout?
The readout, but I don't know if we can.
Well, do you think they'll trust me if I say it says a 1/2-inch?
I hope so.
All right. So, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't be splitting hairs over a couple thousandths, but I have been experimenting with a benchtop CNC, and then we are really concerned about the diameter of the cutter because it affects the overall dimensions of whatever it is we're trying to cut on the CNC. And honestly, I haven't seen this dimensional instability, so I don't know. Maybe it's the quality of bits, the particular bits you're buying, but it's something that I just honestly haven't run into. So I can't really speak to it because it hasn't been a problem for me.
All right. Well, we have I think, a question you can just answer here, and while I'm kind of rearranging. Sean says he loves your videos, and what are your suggestions on the best projects for fathers to teach their kids to love woodworking when the kids are ages 9 through 14?
Here, George. Come here, George. Come here, George. All right, George is going to answer the question.
No.
Well, it's not stay here. Krista wants us to walk this way. I got to hold on to him, or he's going to try to escape again. So from a pretty early age, you used the lathe, right? And I remember you turning pens for teachers, elementary school, you think? Middle school?
Yeah, both.
So elementary school for us goes through 4th grade, and then middle school is 5 through 8. So as a 3rd and 4th grader, I think he was turning pens. Scroll saw is very benign and a great way. What?
Oh, I was just going to suggest go to www.goa.com and search scroll saw.
Why do you need a scroll saw? And look at him now, where he's taller than me, and then go look at why do you need a scroll saw, and he's about this tall. And the other one is he built a bird feeder, not a bird feeder, a bird house in a video clip, and he's about this tall. So birdhouses are a great project because they tend to be pretty boxy. They can be hand nailed together. The cuts don't have to be perfect like a piece of Chippendale furniture. So scroll saw work because it's hard to hurt yourself on a scroll saw. And did you enjoy that? The kind of room to be creative there.
Yeah.
And then some turning. Could you pipe down, please? And then what was the last thing? Oh, birdhouses and that kind of stuff. And what about you? So now that you're older and you're actually taking tech ed classes at school, do you have any advice for young people in the shop in woodworking?
Well, definitely get into technical stuff. It's becoming a more and more prevalent thing. So it's good to get into that early. And it's nice to have a father who knows how to do all this stuff.
What?
Because I don't know how to do half of it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And real quick, I think Gary had asked about the router bits earlier, and he's posted a comment on here. He would like to know what brand bit that you had.
That particular one?
Yeah, that particular
Can you just
one.
grab that spiral cutter again, George? I think it's a white side, but I'm not 100% sure. All right. can you feed us another one while George is retrieving?
Oh yeah, I have a really good question here from Mary. She is a premium user, but she has a premium subscriber, but she is having some issues with videos and having problems logging into her account. Who should she contact?
Okay. It's a good question, Mary. So here's the thing. I do a lot of video stuff, but there's 80 gazillion people in the background for Woodworkers Guild of America. It's a pretty big enterprise. And so could you just try and see if those, do you have the lower thirds that I entered earlier on? No. And just see if the one that's pops up by any chance. So there is an email address and there's an 800 number. And here's what we're going to do. The email, the information, Krista's in my inbound email, which we'll find a way to get that. And if we don't get it into this live video, we'll get it in the comments so that everybody can see it. So if you have trouble logging in, if you find the videos are doggy and don't want to load, if you bought a download that doesn't want to download, please don't email me because I don't know nothing from nothing. But customer service will be able to help you out and get you pointed in the right direction. So I think the easiest thing for us, Krista, we'll get that information in the comments on YouTube and on the Hangout page. Do you have, what was that big one that we just had, that 1/2 inch? And does it just say, you could just tell me, does it say on the shank?
Oh, we have an update from Kayleen. Her power went out of her house, so she will not be joining us. This is, it is a full moon today, I believe, or yesterday, so yeah. Makes sense that we'd have all these technical difficulties.
Well, this is a CMT bit, so that was Gary, right?
Yep.
So Gary, if you got pen and paper, this particular one is a CMT 191-507. That's the part number. 1/2 inch spiral upcut is the cut, solid carbon.
Okay, just quick update. We have a viewer from Scotland,
yes.
One from France, and one from England.
France, no way, bonjour.
Yep.
I'm falling back to my high school French.
John would like to know.
And failing miserably, I can tell.
John would like to know, for small items such as boxes, is it best to finish with just shellac or put on an undercoat of Danish oil and then shellac?
I think I would do it the other way. There's nothing wrong, for something like a box, there's nothing wrong with shellac as a standalone finish. And I'm saying just something like boxes because, like, for a tabletop, it's not a great standalone finish because it doesn't have a lot of water and alcohol resistance. But for a box, it'd be a good choice. But I would maybe use the shellac, de-wax shellac, a form of which is Seal Coat from Zinsser, as an undercoat, as a sealer, and then scuff sand it after it's dry, and then put a coat of oil on over the top of that. And I think you'd have a really nice looking finish.
Thank you. And we have a question from Jim, and I might mess this one up, so correct me if you will, please. Okay. His sanding belts are breaking on the seam. 1 and 3x21 and 4x24. 3x21s and 4x24. Okay.
Okay.
They all do it. There aren't any directional arrows any longer. The major brands and inexpensive sanding belts alike. What is happening?
All right. So George, we need a good stiff belt. We need a sanding belt. I think if you look under the disc sander in one of those drawers, and I don't care too much which belt you bring. So the reason, Jim, is that there are no directional arrows on there anymore is, thank you, sir. It's actually okay to walk into the frame. That's okay. Is that most companies have gotten away from overlapping belts and they butt the belts together. And for us as woodworkers, it's actually a good thing because if you use the belt sander with an overlap on it, there was always kind of a chuk 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 because that creates, it's a double layer. You've always got a high spot, and that affects the quality of sanding that you're going to do. So with these butt seams, like this one, because they're butted together, We there?
No.
Okay, let's do this instead.
There, that's perfect.
Okay, because they're butted together, it doesn't matter which way it runs. When the seam overlaps, it's got to run in a specific direction so that we're not peeling up the overlap. So I think the real question is, why are they all breaking? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally, it's, in my case, it's from hitting the belt on something, like I suddenly catch the edge of a sharp edge of what I'm sanding, or from not paying attention, the belt tracks incorrectly and runs into the housing of the sander, and that'll cause a break. So I would be, if you've tried a couple different brands and you're still having this problem, I would be suspect of the sander and make sure there's nothing on there. You know, if it's tracking okay and you're not hitting a sharp edge, there's nothing else on there that's abrading it someplace. Have a good look at the platen. That's the metal surface underneath here that the belt is actually riding on, and make sure there's nothing there that's screwing up the belt. They're giggling on the other side where you can't see them, Krista and George. And I don't know, maybe they're giggling at me.
No, we're not giggling at you
Affecting my
at all.
self-confidence.
No.
I gotta get my water, so I gotta go this way. But I'll come back.
No, you can stay there, because I think these next two you can answer there. We have two questions here, and I have a feeling I know what you're going to say on both of them. Don would like to know, do you know how the inside-out Christmas ornament is made?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe you would have a video for that.
We do. Both. Yes, I know, and there's a video. And is there another question? Is it this, or I don't need the second one to, all right. Sounds like 2 syllables.
So maybe he would go to wwgoa.com.
I'm not sure it's up on there.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's up on there. So let's do this. George, could you go in that wood room and see if there's like a 4x4 or some reasonably large chunk of wood that we could talk about. Inside outside turning, if you haven't seen this, it's way cool. What happens when you're done is you've got a turning where the whole inside has been hollowed out. And it is kind of a mysterious thing to look at because it's hard to understand how that was done. Nothing there, George? I'll draw it if I need to. Should I draw?
Yes.
He's dragging a tree in here.
While you guys are getting ready, I just want to remind viewers that we apologize. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, so we are actually going to extend out a bit tonight. So if you're just joining us, or if you're looking at the clock and saying, "Oh boy, they're almost done," don't worry, we are not almost done. We're going to keep going to make up for that lost time earlier. All right?
And thanks for sticking with us. All right.
Yes.
So inside outside turning. I'll see if I can draw this. And somebody brought up last time we were doing this on a whiteboard, and it was too reflective. So let us know if this paper and felt tip works better for you. So here's the dealio. We're going to start an inside-outside turning either with a block. Yes, ma'am?
You got to tilt it down. Can't see it at all.
Okay. How about, can you do a little power zoom on it? And then...
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I've got, whatever, a 4x4 that's 8 inches long or whatever. Yeah, that'll work. Well, no, I'm going to stick with this because it's not square. All right, where do you want me to be?
That's fine.
Then we're going to cut this into 4 2x2s. And we're going to take this apart, and this will, if we start with the 4x4, this will make sense to you. We're going to take them apart, turn the pieces 180 degrees, and put it back together. So now I've got this block, going to look very much the same, that's put back together. And then I use packing tape around the outside. Don't glue them together. Packing tape around the outside to hold it in that form. This goes on the lathe like any spindle turning wheel. It goes between centers. And then you hollow here. And of course, we've got packing tape out here, packing tape out here. Don't cut into the tape because those 4 pieces are going to come flying apart. I'm going to hollow this as much as I need to, and this is more of an art than a science. After this outside cove has been formed, you take this assembly back apart, turn the pieces 90 degrees or 180 degrees again, then you do glue them back together. Now, when they glue back together, what was a cove on the outside corner becomes a cove on the inside corner. When you start turning the outside of this, you're going to expose that like a lantern, sort of, and you'll be able to see the inside of that. So the key to this is, the reason that we cut apart a 4x4 and turn them inside out, do the initial turning and put them back together, is so on the outside face, when it comes back together, the grain lines up, and that looks a little better. Alternatively, if you just take 4 2x2s that were never together in the first place, you can still do inside-outside turning that way as well. You just don't have the grain alignment when you put it all back together. It is work I've done on a turning DVD, but I don't think that that content is streaming on Wwgoa yet.
Perfect. Thank you. It seems we have a lot of questions about bandsaws tonight. So I have one here, and the viewer would like to know if you could show us how to set up a bandsaw properly. But I think you might have that one on a video.
Yeah, let's give a 30,000 foot view. Is there some stuff we can cover? It's just take some good camera work on your part. So.
Oh boy.
And then, do you feel like we have enough light over here?
Yeah.
I think so. All right. So let's do. First thing I'm going to do is unplug. And then this is probably more involved in greater detail than we can get here, but we can give that overview. So first thing, I'm going to turn this off so that what I want you to see, Krista, is the upper wheel and where the blade is on that upper tire. Nice. Go tilt up just a little. And do you think we lost focus again, or?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay.
I just can't get much tighter than that.
That's good. No, that's perfect. So when you're tracking the blade on the bandsaw, and this is when the blade goes on, first thing you're going to do is a little bit of tension on the blade, just enough to hold it on, and then you're going to start working on your tracking, which is controlled by a wheel on a knob on the back side of the saw. As I turn that knob in, as I tighten it, it pushes the bottom of the wheel out. So we can see if we can make that happen here. When the bottom of the wheel comes out, the blade goes back. When I relax that upper knob and I turn the wheel, am I blocking it with my arm? That allows the blade to come forward. What we want for 1/4 inch blades and under, and maybe 3/8, I'll explain the line in the sand here, is for the teeth of the blade to be centered on the crown of the wheel. There's a hump here in the middle. These tires are not flat, they're rounded. I want the teeth to be right at the top of the crown. Now, the caveat to this is, as you put a blade on, if you're doing this and any part of the blade is sticking off the back of the wheel, don't do this. Then you center the blade on. So on this saw, I can put the teeth on the center on 1/4 inch, and I think on 3/8 inch. But when I go to a 1/2 inch or larger, then I center the blade. So the first step is to get the tracking right. Then Krista, come down this way toward where we can see the blade down here. Yeah. Yep. Is that all the zoom you have? There you go. Perfect.
Nope.
All right. On the thrust bearing that's behind the blade, we want that to be 3/1000 of an inch behind the back of the blade. What do you own that's 3/1000 of an inch? We've got these fancy feeler gauges. So you can use paper or a dollar bill as a feeler gauge to make sure that you're 3/1000 of an inch in front of the thrust bearing, 3/1000 of an inch between the thrust bearing and the back of the blade. Then similarly, 3/1000 of an inch between the guide blocks and the blade. And I'm going to do that by putting the bill in there, squeeze the guide blocks, lock them in place, take the bill out, that gives us 3/1000. Now here, these are cool blocks in this saw. They're made out of phenolic. On the cool blocks, it's actually okay to allow them to rub. So in this case, I can just kiss them against the side of the blade, lock those, and you're done. Everything looks exactly the same below the table. Make sure that the work you do here, you repeat below the table. That's a really fast overview of what needs to happen there, but you got to get the tracking right or you're starting in a bad spot, and then work on your thrust bearing and guide blocks.
All right, let's stay right here. We have a viewer from Michigan who said when he was teaching shop, he would purchase 100-foot coil stock for his bandsaw because it was much cheaper than buying individualized bands. But his question is, what style of blades do you usually run on your bandsaw?
The blade that's on here now and the one that I'm using 90% of the time in the shop, 1/4 inch, 4 tooth per inch. For me, mostly what I'm doing is cutting 3/4 to 2 inch stock 90% of the time. If I go to a resaw operation in dry wood, I use a 1/2 inch, 4 tooth per inch. If I go to a resaw operation in green wood, if I'm going to cut a log, I use a 3/4 inch, 3 tooth per inch blade, more aggressive tooth pattern. So those are the 3 blades I use most of the time.
All right, and Wade would like to know, if he can't fit a real bandsaw into his shop, what is the next big thing that is smaller?
In bandsaws?
Well, I think he's saying he can't fit a bandsaw into his shop, so what is a small alternative?
Jigsaw. So let's just do a visual on this. Jigsaw is a pretty good alternative. Don't skip. If you're buying a jigsaw, I'm going to go right there, Krista, because I know I move stuff around too much on you. If you're buying a jigsaw expecting to do the work a bandsaw would normally do, spend the dough, get a good one so that the blade's not rattling around on you. What we don't get out of the jigsaw is the ability to cut really, really thick stuff. But you can very effectively cut curves in 3/4 and 1 inch stock with this machine. Pay attention to your blade selection. Just like getting a good saw, it's worth getting good blades so you get good cut quality.
Okay, wonderful. Now we have a couple questions from different viewers that are similar. So several people have asked, what is your best and favorite method to sharpen your chisels, your gouges, your skews, and your scrapers?
There's a specific piece of lathe chisels, or?
Well, I have some say chisels and some say lathe. So okay. I'm incorporating it all into one.
Sure. Could you get that grinder from over there? And then I'm gonna go.
And while you're going, I'm gonna remind everybody.
I'm gonna go this way for a second.
That we're staying here a little bit later tonight due to our technical issues.
George, I'll be right back.
And we are here with George Von Driska, Managing Editor of Wwgoa. Go out to Facebook, Twitter, and our webpage.
Sure.
And also, I just want to say that we have a viewer who wants you to know he is viewing all the way from Ireland.
Nice. What's farther, Ireland or Scotland? Huh? Scotland, George says? That's cool. So Scotland, Ireland, and France, that's very cool.
And England.
And England. Is anybody in the United States watching?
Yes.
Okay.
Our last question was from Michigan.
Oh, that's right. All right, so for my lathe chisels, we've got 2 things going here, bench chisels and lathe chisels. They're giving me the giggles. My lathe chisels I most commonly sharpen on a grinder, but we got to be real specific here. This is what's called a low-speed grinder. Could you come in on the label on the back, Krista, just to make sure they get this? A standard grinder runs at 3,450 RPM. This grinder runs at 1,725.
I can't. We're really fuzzy when I get in that close. Okay. Let me improvise. Ooh, look at that.
So it's only on the Zoom that
Yeah.
it goes fuzzy. Okay, we'll figure that out. A low-speed grinder runs at 1725. The difference here is that on this grinder thing, you could go back out now. Because we're running at a lower RPM, I can run a finer wheel. So on a grinder, I'm running maybe an 80 grit wheel and I'm grinding, I'm shaping metal, I'm not honing metal. That's too abrasive. On a low speed grinder, I think that my fine wheel on this one is 220 grit. Don't hold me to that, I'm pretty sure that's right. That gives me the opportunity to hone. If I was running that fine wheel on a high-speed grinder, it would run it too fast in RPM and it would just rub. The wheel wouldn't have the opportunity to cut metal away, and you're going to get too much friction, too much heat, you're going to ruin the chisel. So I do my chisels for lathe chisels, I do that sharpening freehand here on this grinder. For bench chisels, I do most of that on a real specific problem-solving product. I do that, are we in, George, on this one? Or Krista, yes. I do that on a work sharp. With the work sharp, it's got a platform on the top here that I can sharpen on. And then for chisels, bench chisels specifically, let me grab one. It's also got a ramp on the bottom. You're in exactly the right spot where a chisel can come up in here, and I can set this angle to the angle I want to sharpen the chisel at. So by no means am I intending to do a work sharp commercial. I've just found that this is a really easy and bulletproof way to sharpen bench chisels. There's attachments for it that'll do knives and scissors, easy for me to say, and it will sharpen everything except my
Whip?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Anybody who's used this enough knows that's the right answer.
Uh-huh.
All right. Okay, so I think maybe while you're putting those away, I will answer this. I will ask this question. We do seem to have a lot of questions also about finishing, so maybe we can get to them. I'm not sure. And for those of you who have just joined us, we are staying a little later due to our technical issues earlier in the evening. So the question I have is from John. For the first time ever, he gets to own his own shop.
Yay!
It's 18 by 28 with lots of outlets. Plans call for a subfloor of 3/4 inch treated plywood over 2x6 floor joist. All of his tools are on rollers. What would be a good primary floor that will stand up to moving fairly heavy rollers over the floor for several years to come? He's heard that OSB works. If so, how should he finish and how best to secure it to the subfloor?
Well, OSB would be my last choice. So OSB is oriented strand board. It's in the particle board family, except that the particles are more like flakes. They're really, really big. And I think if you're intending to ever move anything on that floor, drag anything across that floor, and I know, today as you're setting up your pristine shop, the word drag is maybe hard to hear. But you got a big heavy sheet of plywood, you can only lift on one end, you're dragging the other end. I really think that strand board is going to start to peel on you. I would look for something that's got, we want a firmer film, sort of. We want a firmer layer on that surface. So I think plywood with maybe a good marine or floor paint on it. My experience with plywood in my old shop, that had a plywood floor real similar to what you did. I had 2x6 joists on 12-inch centers, 3/4 inch plywood over the top of it, screwed in place, not nailed. And that floor was significantly overbuilt for per square foot load rating, but I did that on purpose because of the tools. What I found with the plywood is that, especially because of the video work, when we were moving the tools around, over time, it started to peel the plywood. I never painted the plywood. I think that would have made a big difference. So if you're just going to stick with plywood, I would definitely get a good sealer on it. And then even better, if you can do it, I would go with a floor over that provides even more durability. Like, could you do a hardwood floor? Could you get hardwood flooring on sale someplace that would allow you to do that? Krista's showing you the floor in this place. It's asphalt tile. I'm on a concrete floor here with a commercial grade tile over the top of it. I'm not sure what the prep would be to get asphalt tile over plywood. I think you'd have to do a layer of particle board in between, but you need to check with a flooring person on that. But this asphalt tile, boy, it sweeps like a dream. It cleans up real nice. It'd be a good choice.
All right, so we're going to kind of move, I think, onto finishing because there seems to be a lot of questions, and we've overlooked finishing tonight a little bit. So John uses spar finish for his deck chairs. After he opens a can, he doesn't use it all at once. He reseals the lid, but he still gets a film across the top of the unused varnish. Is there a way to stop or avoid the film from forming?
Yes. Oh, how? You want to know how? I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll give you two answers for this. One is pretty low tech. So here's the deal. We open the can. You open the can and air gets in there. What causes finish to dry? Air. So it forms a scum, a film over the top because there's air in the can. So what some people will do is buy marbles, and when you're done using the finish for the day, put marbles in the can until you bring the level of finish back up within where it was when you opened the can. So if in using it, I've lowered the level of finish by an inch, I'm going to pour marbles in there until it comes back up an inch. If you don't want to do the marbles, then there's a commercially made product out there. It's a really weird name. It's called Bloxygen, BLOXYGEN, and I believe their website is just bloxygen.com. It's an aerosol can, and it's full of stuff that isn't air. I don't actually know what's in it, but its purpose in life is I do my work. Immediately before I'm going to seal the can, I squirt this, I hold the lid kind of partially closed, squirt the Bloxygen in there, close the lid. So it's putting something in there that's displacing the ambient air, and it's going to prevent that film from forming. As long as the can is properly sealed, that's going to prevent that film from forming. So marbles or Bloxygen.
All right, and AJ has a finishing question. What is your go-to wood finishing preference? Poly, lacquer, paint, etc. He really likes the feel and look of poly, but many people on YouTube talk about using lacquer. Are there many considerations? What would you do for yourself, George, and what is your preference?
I'm going to sit down. Bottom shelf, George. So here's my deal. Coming out of a lot of commercial cabinet work, I have been spraying catalyzed lacquer since forever. And I love a lot of things about it. Catalyzed lacquer has got a lot of durability to it compared to just conventional lacquer. Either one, both, sure. The downside to it is there are brushable lacquers out there, but really a great way to apply lacquer is to spray it. If you don't have a spray booth, then you're out of luck. The polyurethanes offer a great deal of protection, and for tabletops and that kind of stuff, polyurethane is a great way to go. Why don't I use that instead of lacquer? A big reason is the drying time. Polyurethane dries very slowly, so if you're finishing in your shop, excuse me, and there's stuff trickling down out of the air, there's a lot of opportunity for those dust nibs to settle in polyurethane. So I love with lacquer that it flashes, it dries really fast, easy to apply if you can spray. Lately, I have switched to, I'm really trying to go to a water-based product. So again, this is not a commercial, this is just a product I've been experimenting with. This is Aquacoat. George, there's one in there called Tabletop Crosslink. And then if you go, hand me that first, and then go on the wooden shelf in the back, there's a bunch of oak boards that have finish on them. They're like 6 inches wide and 14 inches long, we can show. I really am trying to switch to a water-based product. So I've been experimenting with this Aquacoat, and what I've been doing is putting de-wax shellac. I've been putting seal coat, Zinsser seal coat down as a base coat. Let that dry thoroughly, light scuffing on it, and then hit it with a couple of top coats of this stuff. And George is going to bring us, they're on the right end of that shelf, all stacked up. Yep, perfect. So George is going to bring us some samples, and we'll see. It's going to be hard to see. This isn't Krista's fault. We're not real well lit in here, but I'll see if I can show you what this stuff looks like. Thank you. So this is red oak, and on this one, it actually doesn't have any seal coat under it. So I don't know.
Ooh, shiny.
Oh, there. Maybe it's getting it up.
Yeah.
Now the reason that big black circle is on there is I was wondering about durability, and I know once water-based stuff seals or cures, it's no longer water soluble. But I just wanted to know if I put this on a tabletop and I spill something, how's it going to react? So I put a puddle of water right there for about 4 hours and then wiped it off. And there's no indication at all that there was ever water in there. Let me see. So this one has got a base coat of shellac under the water base. So I have become a believer. Water base in general, I think, has come a long way. I did spray these finishes. I used a Erlex sprayer with a pretty small needle in it. Very, very easy to work with, and I'm determined at this point in my woodworking to switch completely to the water base. I really love this stuff. So
you said that you like to spray because we did have a comment about someone who's having issues when he brushes on his finish.
Okay.
So it's just saying he's having problem applying lacquer by brush. He applies the sealer, then the first coat. When he applies the second coat, after 2 hours, the lacquer pulls and it looks like liquid marks. What is the proper ratio for diluting? He started about 50-50 and then 30-70 thinner and lacquer.
Oh, I think that's too much. So diluting is good. 50-50 is a lot too much. I think even 30-70. I would try, so diluting, we're mixing lacquer thinner with lacquer. And I would try more like 10% dilution and see if that helps you. Lacquer is, the good news is lacquer flashes fast. The bad news is that makes it difficult to brush. If you're not currently using specifically a brushable lacquer, I would look for that product. I think Minwax makes one. And it's just been chemistry differently so that it's going to work better with a brush.
Perfect. All right, I think we just have time for one more. We've had, I think, right?
Let's do.
How many you want to do?
Well, it's 8:20 on my clock.
Yep. We started at like 8:27, I think, right?
I don't know.
I mean 7:27. It doesn't really matter.
Let's run till 8:30.
Okay.
So we're giving you what, about 10 more minutes of questions?
Yep. All right. So William has a question about a joiner. Or excuse me, a router, and there seems to be a lot of questions about routers too. So he wants to know on the Porter cable, 4212 or 4212, maybe?
Is a dovetail jig.
Router jig. Does it matter which face of the pin boards faces you when you route the sockets?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And why?
Okay. So now, George, this is on. Let's see the bin full of spring clamps is on the floor? Or a little bit to your left? Nope, back where you were going. And on top of it, keep going straight. And on top of it, there's a whole bin full of wood joints. That's what we want, are that bin full of joints.
Oh, and while we're waiting for that, we have someone from New Zealand on and someone from the Philippines on.
Oh, Philippines, that's new for us. That's very cool. All right. So what we're talking about here is dovetails on a dovetail jig, and it doesn't matter if Porter cable 4212 or anybody else's, the answer is going to be the same. I hope there's a dovetail. All right, there's the other. Okay. So when these parts go in the jig, they're going to look like this. I'm going to try to stand still for you.
The lighting is a little, actually, do you think you could step maybe a little this way? I think we're getting the light from there.
Is it,
yeah, that's
it's
a little
washing
better.
out the makeup?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay. So when we cut this, we're cutting the tails and the sockets at the same time. This pin and pin and socket board is horizontal in the jig. The tail board is vertical in the jig. They're intentionally offset so that as the bit comes by, it cuts each part of the joint. When we close this joint, and obviously these two boards don't really live together because the groove is wrong, but when we close the joint, it's going to come together like this so that the dovetail, whoops, I'm sorry, so that the dovetail goes together. So back to the cutting step, they're in the jig like this. The inside, what you're intending to be the inside of the tail board should be facing you. What you're intending to be the inside of the pin and socket board should be up. So when I teach this in a class, I tell students, put your labeling marks on the inside of the drawer box pieces. So when they go in the jig, if you can see the marks, you know you have them in the jig the right way.
And is that your recommendation for getting tight-fitting dovetails? Because we did have that question as well.
Well, so on half-blind dovetails, a tight fit is all about the depth of cut of the bit. When you buy the jig and you read the owner's manual, and you need to read the owner's manual, it's going to say in there you're going to get a perfect bit or a perfect fit if the bit is set to some depth, and it's different for every jig. Through a series of test cuts, you got to tweak that depth of cut to get it just right. The rule of thumb on that is too loose, too deep, too tight. Too tight, too deep, too loose. Lautrec. Too tight, too deep, too loose, too shallow. So if we put this together and it won't go together, it's too tight, the bit was set too deep. There's too much bit sticking out of the router. If we put this together and it's sloppy, the bit is too shallow, and you've got to get more bit sticking out of the router. Then I'm going to do one more thing. It's different on a through dovetail. Our fit on a through dovetail is controlled by the position of the jig. So on a through dovetail, when these pins and sockets are under the comb of the jig, because they're cut at an angle, if the comb comes this way, that makes the distance between the pins smaller and the joint tighter. If the comb moves away from the operator, that makes the distance, the sockets bigger and the fit looser. So through dovetails, we control it on the jig. Half-blind dovetails, we control it on the router bit, the depth of cut of the router bit. And it's, on half-blind, it's fussy. You got to take your time to get it right. Once you have a board that's correctly cut, once you have one that fits, keep this, and then you can put this in your jig and use this as a depth gauge the next time you want to set that pipe. What?
Do you have an article about this on Wwgoa?
Do we have an article? Oh, yeah. So somebody should be talking about the website. Thank you, Krista. There are a number of videos. I think we have done about, I don't know, somewhere between 4 and 8 videos on the Porter Cable 4212 dovetail jig. We've done both half blind and through dovetails, start to finish, setup, tweaking the router, tweaking the jig, everything. And then there's also an article Bruce Kiefer did, which is about cutting half blind dovetails in drawers. So if you go on wwgoa.com, upper right hand corner, there's a search window, and just put in dovetails, and you're going to get lots and lots and lots of matches, and it'll help you with this stuff.
All right, so it's 8:30.
Okay.
We have a big question.
I have a big answer.
Yeah.
I can tell. What are you saving some? Are you saving some red herring for the end here?
No. Well, yeah. So Larry, he must watch this. Thank you, Larry, for watching us all the time. He wants to know, is your daughter's boyfriend still enjoying her custom-made guitar?
Yes. yes to the guitar, no to the boyfriend. So Jenny finished the guitar and surprised him with it, and then there was a breakup shortly after that. And I'll give Jenny a lot of credit. So she was 17 then, right, still, George? So Jenny was about 17, and the breakup happened. And I said, well, how do you feel about that? Because got all these hours in the guitar, and this was a really big gift. And a mature young lady that she was, she said, I gave it to him as a gift. That's his guitar, and he can do with it whatever he wants. So he still has it. If we need it, she brought it here when we did the Build a Better Guitar event. So she borrows it when we need to do show and tell. But yes, he still has it, and he's got a little garage band, and I guess he plays it at his gig, so he's enjoying it. And it was a great project. It was a great thing to do with Jane.
Great. All right.
Are we?
I think we are wrapping up. So let's just remind everybody, because of our technical difficulties, we weren't able to put up the customer service email and phone number, so we will get that in the comments for you guys, for anybody.
On YouTube and on the...
And on this, yep. For anybody who's having problems with their membership, accessing videos, if the website is running a little slowly for you, any of those kind of technical questions about the website, we will throw that up. We weren't able to get Kayleen back because her power was out, so maybe we'll try again in the future.
Yeah, she was all hip to do this, so we'll get her, and then and we'll keep exploring that guest thing. We'll get Kayleen on here, and then we're going to keep looking at getting other guests involved as well.
All right, so...
How about Audio 1, Audio 2? Did we get it?
Yep, Audio 1 is the best. Audio 2 you cut out, so that's pretty definitive. Lots of comments on that.
Oh, you know why? Because the Audio 2 microphone wasn't turned on. Let's do this again. Well, come on, it'll take 2 seconds. Here we go. Now it's turned on. So, going to do this experiment one more time. This is Audio 1. Audio 1.